Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel, Calvin Dupree's Fishing. Today we're going to be going over the Wacky rig. Okay, so what defines a Wacky rig? A Wacky rig is basically any soft plastic, usually Senkos or stick type baits, worm type baits that are hooked right through the middle. Technically speaking, you could Wacky rig any type of soft plastic, but you're almost always going to want to Wacky rig a Senko type of bait. Personally, I like to use Yamamoto Senkos. They're a little more pricey, but I think they catch a lot more fish. But essentially, that's what the Wacky rig is. You can use all sorts of colors on the Wacky rig. You can use dark colors. You can use natural colors like this. This works better in clear water. If you're fishing dirty water, I would use a darker black or blue. If you're fishing real clear water, you can go with a lighter natural color like this. I've even fished some red colored Senkos on Wacky rigs. I caught my personal best bass the other day, about 7.5, pushing 8 pounds off of red Yamamoto Senko on the Wacky rig. So really it just depends on the circumstances. You can fish all sort of Senkos and plastic worms on the Wacky rig. Basically just test it out depending on the water clarity and what the fish are biting on. Okay guys, here's a basic Wacky rig. Wide gap hook, generic Senko. I believe this is a Yamamoto Senko, just kind of your generic Senko color. We have here the first way of rigging it. This is just hooked right through the worm. Now, while this is the most common way to rig the Wacky rig, a lot of the times you're going to lose baits and get snagged up with this, and I'm going to tell you why. So you're going to lose baits because whenever fish grab onto this, if you get a smaller fish, this is the fish's mouth right here, this is your bait. If the fish grabs on the worm right here, you're going to feel that bite, and when you go to set the hook, that hook comes right out of the worm. I've seen people take the hook and rig Wacky rigs like this. I would not recommend doing that. I've seen people do this with those little rubber things too. I would not recommend doing that because when that fish grabs onto this worm, 9 times out of 10 you're just going to pull that hook right out of its mouth and you're going to lose your worm. So whenever I rig my Wacky rig, at least, I always rig it right through the middle of the worm. Pretty basic, pretty simple. Now, if I'm fishing around a lot of rocks or a lot of timber, something I'm going to get snagged up on a lot, one thing that I will do that just helps a little bit to get off of snags is rather than push that hook all the way through the worm, I'm just going to leave that hook just barely inside that worm. Not quite peeking out. Leave it just in there, so then when you can go, and this is going to bounce off branches, rocks, any sort of structure you could get snagged on a lot easier. It's not foolproof, but this will get you off of quite a few snags. So that is our basic how to rig the Wacky rig. Okay, so now we're going to go over our 2 basic ways to fish the Wacky rig. The first way, you're going to be fishing with slack line. I personally do not do this, but if you're fishing on calm water, there's not a lot of wind, and the lights are bite, I would highly recommend fishing this way. So, you're going to cast out your Wacky rig, usually using spinning tackle, light gear. I would not use a bait caster for a Wacky rig. So you're going to cast it out, let it sink to the bottom, and you're going to pop it up, kind of like a jig. Just move it through the water. You can pull it through the water, pop it through the water, whatever. And you're going to let that line go slack. Keep your rod tip up. The big thing with fishing with slack line with a Wacky rig is you're going to watch that line. And if that line jumps or if you get a lot of slack all of a sudden, there's a fish there. There's different ways to set the hook. You can reel with the line and feel for that fish before you set the hook. Or some people like to just watch that line. As soon as that line jumps or goes slack, they just immediately set the hook. Sometimes that fish will just pick it up and drop it, and that can throw you off. That's the reason I don't like to fish this one. So the second way to fish the Wacky rig is you're going to be fishing with tight line. You're going to cast out, let it sink to the bottom, same premise, and you're going to move your bait through the water, but this time you're going to keep the tip of your rod down, and you're kind of just going to pull it through the water and keep your line tight. And rather than watching your line, you're going to be feeling on your rod. You want to feel the tip of your rod for any bites that you have. This way, personally, I like it a lot better. You know, if you have a light bite, you can stop and fish the bait a little more slowly to hope that fish comes back. But if you get a heavy bite, obviously you're going to feel it. It's going to be right there. You're going to know exactly when to set the hook. I catch a lot more fish doing this. I know I have some friends that like to fish it slack. I have some friends that like to fish it like I do. It all depends on your personal preference and the settings that you're in. Okay guys, so that wraps up my Wacky rig video. I just wanted to go over the basics of Wacky rigging with you. If you've been bass fishing for a long time, you're probably thinking, you know, this is stupid. Why would I watch this channel? I'm going to do more in-depth videos. This is just kind of my starter video, just kind of figuring this whole YouTube thing out. Hopefully I will get to go fishing this weekend, and I have a GoPro that I bought recently, and this nice camera I'll take out with me. We've got a little John boat on a really nice pond. I'll go fishing. I'll get that up as soon as I edit it, and hopefully more in-depth content and fishing content to come on this channel, Calvin DePriest Fishing. Gonna be a lot of good content, so get out there and go fishing, guys. See you next time. Finally got a fish, you guys. Couldn't really get setting the hook or anything, but you know, kind of dry day fishing, but about to wrap it up. Sun's setting. Alright, sun's setting. Got a storm coming in over here, but went back to that jig. I was frog fishing a chatterbait a little bit, not much, but caught this nice fish off a jig right here. Nice little bass. Nailed that jig, put up a good fight.